slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow.
In a quiet workshop filled with scattered sketches and strange contraptions, Stickman Alexander Graham Bell stood with a curious sparkle in his circle eyes. His simple stick arms reached for papers covered in scribbles, ideas swirling in his mind about how sound could travel. The world saw him as a teacher and tinkerer, but deep down, he dreamed of a tool that could bridge distance with nothing but voice. Bell's fascination with sound began early, thanks to his family's passion for speech and communication. His father studied how people formed words, and his grandfather had been a speech teacher too. So naturally, Stickman Bell grew up surrounded by the rhythms of voices, the melody of language, and the challenge of making sound clearer. His bow tie shook with excitement whenever he talked about it. He wasn't satisfied just teaching or repeating old lessons. No, he wanted to stretch sound beyond the limits of human ears. One day, as he adjusted his tiny stick spectacles, he wondered, could voices leap across wires like invisible messengers? The thought made his stick legs wiggle with nervous joy. It was an idea that seemed absurd, yet he felt it calling to him, daring him to try. Stickman Bell began experimenting with vibrations, turning his simple lab into a playground of buzzing metal and taut strings. He'd pluck them, press them, and lean close, listening carefully. His big round head tilted, as if he could hear secrets hiding inside each vibration. To him, sound wasn't just noise, it was energy, a living wave waiting to be guided. The more he experimented, the messier his workshop became. Wires dangled like spider webs, cups and magnets clattered on the floor, and his stick figure bodies sometimes tripped over his own creations. But Stickman Bell didn't care. To him, every small accident was another clue. Every tangled wire, another chance to test a crazy idea. One evening, while the sun dipped low, Bell sat on a stool, tapping his chin. He remembered how a tuning fork could make another fork hum without touching it. That strange magic of resonance stuck in his head. What if human voices could do the same? Make a wire carry their song into another room? The thought filled him with stick-sized determination. His assistant, Stickman Watson, often joined him in the workshop. Together, they looked like two doodles arguing over which wire should go where. Watson was patient, always helping Bell hammer pieces together while secretly wondering if this project would ever work. Bell's enthusiasm, however, was contagious, keeping Watson's curiosity alive. Late nights became the norm. Bell hunched over crude wooden frames while Watson carefully twisted copper coils. Sparks sometimes flew, making them jump back with startled stick faces, but then they'd laugh and dive right back in. The workshop became not just a place of invention, but a theater of trial, error, and endless hope. Through all the failures, Bell never let discouragement pin him down. His stick arms might slump for a moment, but soon he'd straighten up again, bow tie bouncing with renewed energy. "We're chasing voices," he'd whisper to Watson. "One day, they'll fly." That phrase became their mantra, a reminder that every misstep was just another rung on the ladder toward discovery. Finally, after countless tests, Bell built a device with a diaphragm, a thin piece that could vibrate when sound hit it. He connected it to an electrical circuit, believing those vibrations could be transformed into signals racing along a wire. His stick hands trembled as he assembled it, as though he knew history was close to unfolding.
The breakthrough came in March 1876. While fiddling with the transmitter, Bell spilled acid on his clothes and instinctively shouted, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." Watson, in another room, heard those words carried over the wire. His stick head popped up in shock. Voices had leapt through a machine for the first time. Bell's round stick eyes widened. He hadn't just called Watson, he had called the future. The room filled with excitement as the two stickmen danced clumsily in circles, wires still tangled at their feet. They laughed at the absurdity of it, realizing their stick-sized doodle experiment had just changed the way humanity would connect forever. Word of Bell's telephone spread quickly. Some laughed at the odd contraption, thinking it was little more than a toy. Others, however, saw its potential immediately. Stickman Bell, though shy at times, demonstrated it proudly, his bow tie fluttering with pride as people leaned in, astonished that a voice could travel through metal. Still, the road wasn't easy. Rival inventors argued over patents, and critics questioned whether ordinary people would ever use such a strange machine. But Bell's stick resolve was strong. He believed communication was too vital to be locked in small spaces. Voices deserved to roam free, and his telephone was the key to that freedom. Stickman Bell's invention quickly turned into more than a machine. It became a symbol. Families could stay connected across cities, businesses could trade faster, and emergencies could be solved with a single call. Each conversation carried not just words, but emotions, hopes, and stories, traveling like invisible stick bridges between hearts. Though fame found him, Bell never stopped experimenting. He kept his stick head bent over blueprints, curious about flight, sound recording, and even futuristic ideas no one dared imagine. To him, invention wasn't about glory, it was about curiosity, a fire that kept glowing in his circle-shaped mind. In every lecture and demonstration, Bell reminded people that innovation starts with simple questions. His stick figure stood tall, saying, "Why not?" when others said, "Impossible." That attitude inspired countless dreamers to chase their own strange ideas, no matter how messy or silly they looked at first. The telephone became the foundation of a communication revolution. Stickman Bell, with his plain lines and round head, had unknowingly opened the door to radios, mobile phones, and even the internet. Each advancement was a ripple born from that first wobbly call to Watson. Looking back, Bell often smiled at the memory of spilling acid and calling out in desperation. That accident had unlocked history. It reminded him that invention isn't always neat. It's a mix of chaos, chance, and relentless curiosity. His stick grin carried the wisdom that mistakes are just disguised breakthroughs. Stickman Bell's journey teaches us that great ideas don't need fancy beginnings. Sometimes a simple doodle of a person, wires sprawled on a messy floor, can spark something that changes everything. Innovation often hides in humble shapes and curious minds. In classrooms and documentaries, his name became legendary. But the Stickman version makes it easier to see his humanity. Clumsy, hopeful, determined, and wonderfully stubborn. He wasn't a perfect genius. He was a curious thinker who refused to stop asking questions. Generations later, people still marvel at the simplicity of his breakthrough. The telephone was both ordinary and magical, turning invisible waves into conversations. Bell's stick silhouette remains etched in history, holding a crude transmitter, but also holding humanity's dream of connection. If you watch closely, you can almost imagine him today, stick arms crossed, bow tie tilted, smiling at the sight of billions of people talking through phones. His invention had become a lifeline, shrinking the world into something more intimate, more reachable. His stick story is proof that imagination doesn't have limits. It shows that persistence, even in the face of tangled wires and failed tests, can eventually turn a whisper of an idea into a roar that echoes across centuries. The legacy of Stickman Alexander Graham Bell is not just about a device, but about daring to ask what if. It's about turning lines and circles into bridges between people, erasing distance, and making the world smaller through the power of sound. So the next time your phone buzzes, remember the stickman who once shouted for Watson in a tiny workshop. His simple sketch of curiosity grew into the symphony of voices we hear today, and it all began with a dream of voices flying through wires. Bell's tale is a reminder that even the simplest shapes can hold the grandest visions. And just like his stick figure, every dreamer, no matter how small, can change the way the world connects, one bold idea at a time. And so, Stickman Alexander Graham Bell fades into legend, not as a flawless genius, but as a curious dreamer who turned simple lines into history. His circle head and stick arms remind us that even the most basic figures can carry extraordinary ideas. Through laughter, failure, and stubborn faith, he gave the world its first real taste of instant connection. The journey of Stickman Alexander Graham Bell is more than a story of invention. It's an invitation to chase odd ideas, to embrace mistakes, and to believe that even a whisper in a messy workshop can become the loudest echo across time. His stick bow tie may be tiny, but his impact remains colossal.